What's up, Central Illinois? You know what you all need? Y'all need some CIBL podcast swag. And thanks to our newest sponsor, Jedco Sales, you can now find our swag at CIBLmerch.com. You can find t-shirts, sweatshirts, polos, hats, and more, all classically adorned with our famous CIBL podcast logo. If you want to represent and support your favorite podcast, check out CIBLmerch.com. That's CIBLmerch.com. If you like our store, you can also build your very own business swag store with the help of Jedco Sales in Effingham, Illinois. Jedco is owned by previous CIBL guests, Andrew and Laren Dial. They've set up a special discount offer for CIBL guests and listeners to set up your very own custom branded swag store. You can now offer branded apparel to your employees, customers, and fans, and Jedco will fulfill all the orders for you. Contact Jedco at sales@jedcosales.com. That's sales@JEDCO sales.com, and tell them that Garrett and Derek sent you. Let Jedco help you get noticed.
Welcome to the Central Illinois Business Leaders Podcast, where business owners, thought leaders, and community champions from across Central Illinois come to share their story. The Central Illinois Business Leaders Podcast. Anything less would be uncivilized.
What's up, Central Illinois? I'm Derek Hayden. I'm here with Garrett Omer. We are your hosts for the Central Illinois Business Leaders Podcast, powered by Zambu. Zambu is a delicious grapefruit or wildberry vodka-based spirit infused with a Brazilian buzz button. It's smooth, tasty, and leaves you with a signature tingle. Learn more at zambuliquors.com. Zambu, taste the tingle. All right, Central Illinois, today's guest is a business advisor at Ferguson Alliance. Ladies and gents of Central Illinois, please welcome Brandi Marek. How are you doing, Brandi?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you on the show, and we're excited to learn about your story. But before we do, Brandi, I'm going to kick it to Garrett, and he's going to take you through our speed round questions.
All right, let's do this.
All right, so we'll just kick it off here. The first concert that you ever attended?
Oh, the first concert that I ever attended. I believe it was, it's a toss-up. I can't remember exactly, but it was either Tom Petty or Reba McEntire. That's a broad range.
Yeah. Here's your one chance fancy. There you go.
There you go. Nice. Favorite movie?
Favorite movie, again, it would probably have to be Trolls.
Trolls?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
I like the colors. I like the spirit. I like the enthusiasm.
Yep. Nice. Favorite ice cream flavor?
I'm very basic. It is a Bluebell. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Bluebell, but it is made about 30 minutes down the road from me, and it's homemade vanilla.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
It goes with everything. It's very universal.
There you go. Are you an iPhone or Android person?
iPhone all the way, and Mac, and anything Apple.
There you go. Favorite social media platform?
None of them, but if I had to choose, I would say TikTok, which I know makes me sound, I don't know, everyone always laughs at that, but I find that it can be very educational if you're watching the right things.
I would agree. Yeah, for sure. And last but not least, this is where we typically ask if you're from Central Illinois, but you're not. So why don't you tell us a little bit about where you're from and what you like about it and why you live there?
Okay, I am born and raised in Texas, and if you know anything about Texans, you know that they're very proud of where they're from. So I live just a little bit north of Houston. I've grown up in this area, and so I love it because everyone here is very nice. I do a fair amount of traveling, and so I've experienced a lot of different places in a lot of different towns, and you just can't beat feeling like even when you don't know someone that you're always welcome. And so I love that living about here. I could do without the heat. It does get very hot, but I'm also not a snow person. California, I feel like, has the most ideal weather. And so if we always talk about it would be interesting to move because you only live once. And me and my husband both we're grown and raised here. And so I've always messed around with the idea of moving, but haven't done that yet.
There you go.
You say you don't like the heat, but we could probably, would you switch this morning, Derek? It was about 28 degrees here this morning.
Yeah. Today, it was rough this morning, but I guess that's what we expect when we live in Central Illinois. It was like,
right.
What, 80 degrees 3 days ago?
Yep.
And
it was like 81
today,
something like that. And then, so we the switch was flipped and they decided it was going to be fall weather. So it is on now, because it's probably a nice, 80 something where you're at.
Crazy enough, we did get a cold front yesterday. And so it was 86 degrees yesterday. And then in the afternoon, it dropped down to 60. And this morning when we woke up, it was 42.
Ooh,
so
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
My friend, I had a friend post on social media, and it was like, hey, Texas is like, hey, fall, are you coming? And then fall says, yeah, me and winter are about to pull up.
Yeah. Perfect. That's about right. That's about right.
And winter yesterday. So yeah.
Well, I've got to make a quick comment on the Bluebell. So when you said Bluebell, I saw Garrett smirk a little bit too. So there's a famous or infamous bar in Central Illinois, in a town called Pana, Illinois, called the Bluebell.
Oh, really?
And anybody who's been there has a story to tell about the Bluebell. So that little bar, it's got a lot of stories, and that's why I kind of smirked whenever you said Bluebell ice cream.
Funny.
That's what it made me think.
I was at too. So Derek and I are not in the same room, but I feel like I was looking at his eyes and he was looking at mine, and I'm like, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? So
Yep, exactly. Awesome, Brandi.
That's great.
Yeah, you breezed through those questions pretty easily, so nice work.
Ooh, I was sweating.
What we'll do now, Brandi, is we're just going to give you the mic. You take over the show, tell us your story, take us back as far as you'd like, bring us up to speed with what you're doing today.
Okay, awesome. Well, I am a business advisor for Ferguson Alliance. We are a firm that specializes in family-owned businesses and specialize in helping them. I always say the easiest way to think about it is to really kind of sort out their family junk. And that can be as it pertains to their business, right? And so oftentimes we find that business owners have about 80 to 90% of their net worth tied up in their business. And they either want to pass that down or monetize it at some point. And so we help figure out, okay, where are the gaps, where are the weaknesses in the business, so that you can either continue to maximize the profitability of it, or what do you need to change so that at some point quickly or somewhat quickly down the road, you can sell it, right? And so we help kind of suss out, are there any family members working in the business? What do they want to do? What are their goals? What are their intentions, right? What does the business need? So in terms of people, power, sales, all the things, and then help you build a plan, get aligned to do that. And so every case is different. We're very niche. We're very hands-on. There's no one fix for, like, if you say I've got a succession problem, we don't like pull out the succession files and have you fill in the blanks. It's very high touch. So that's essentially what we do. And it's hard to kind of explain it simply because everything is so different. But essentially, we help you maintain, protect, and expand on the value of your business for whatever you decide to do in the future. How I got here was that when I graduated from college in 2007 with a degree in political science, mind you, so not business, not finance, not anything close to anything that I did. My husband his family has a business. It's a wholesale nursery. And so it specializes in growing plant material for large landscape contractors, retail garden centers. And it also has a tissue culture lab, which essentially clones plants and helps them take genetics to the market. So you find a plant that has never existed, it'll help make 100,000 of those plants and get them out into the world. They were starting a new ERP system and they needed some help. And I was highly opposed to doing this. I really wanted to go into public administration, but I didn't have a job yet. And if This was at the beginning of 2008, and the world wasn't looking super great. And so I said, look, I'll do this for a little bit, but I don't want to do it forever. And that was 15 years ago. I did leave the business in 2021. But prior to doing that, we hired Ferguson Alliance to help us sort out our family junk. My husband and I didn't really know what direction we wanted to go. We're extremely burnt out in the business. Family and business had overlapped and mixed a lot. And so everybody had different priorities. No one was on the same page. And so we needed help. We needed a third party to help us see what we didn't see, get out of our own heads. And so then in that process, I discovered and was set on, it would be best for me to leave this business. And so that's what I did. That's actually what we all did. And little did we know when we started the process with Ferguson, selling the business was never on the radar. And that's essentially what we ended up doing. We had hired a non-family member president in 2019. And then after getting to know him more and getting to know his aspirations, felt like he would be an ideal candidate to sell the business to. And that's what we did.
Very cool.
So, wow. Yeah, that's my evolution. Now I get to help people, just like my family, knowing, exactly how they feel, sort out what they do. I do gravitate towards management team, development, things like that. I love people. I love working with people. I love stretching and setting goals with people and helping them achieve those goals. And so those are my favorite kind of projects to take on. And so we have a collaborative approach with our advisors. A client may come on and want to work with some of our finance team, and then that segues into a team development project. We all kind of have our niches and kind of things that we prefer to do. So that's what we do.
Nice.
That's awesome. Yeah. I was going to say, I know that there's multiple people that are leaning into if they're listening to their car, they're leaning in a little bit, because most small businesses start out somehow as family businesses,
Yep.
Then they get to the point of they're ready to expand, or like you said, perpetuate the business, or they're going to sell it, and they don't know how to handle that process. And whether you're in a family business or a friend who's in a family business, everybody, most people listening to this probably are thinking of someone. If they're not thinking of themselves, they're thinking of someone in a situation like this. So I know that our listeners, this is probably one that they want to hear about. So Garrett, did you have a question you're going to ask?
No, I was just going to kind of say same thing. I'm sure it's got to touch base with most of the people that you work with, the fact that you were involved with it, right? Because there's going to be a lot of family members that work for a business that maybe, kind of like yourself, didn't necessarily think they would end up working in a family business or for the family business.
Mm-hmm.
So that you've got to be able to relate very well with your clients when it comes to that nature. And I guess my first question was going to be, when did you know that when you were going through this process that maybe this was something you would like to do down the road? How did that all perpetuate?
It's definitely not something that I saw myself doing. Again, I really gravitate towards people. I really like developing teams and working through teams. And so it wouldn't have been my default thought, but in the process of me trying to kind of figure out what I wanted to do next, do with my life, I was talking to Rob, who's the founder of Ferguson Alliance, and had seen it all with us. And I had told him, I really think that I need to make a switch. I need to make a move. And he was like, you're so good with people. You're so relatable. Have you ever thought about, maybe joining something like my firm to help other people? You just have the firsthand experience with that. And I'll tell you again, it's like the story of my life. At first I was like, I don't think so. I don't think that's, I don't know if that would be the right thing for me to do or for me to try out. But the more I thought about it, I thought, how interesting it would be to learn about all different kinds of businesses kind of at the same time. And so that's really when I started to think about that. And, you know, one interesting observation that I've had over the past 2 years now is just that really kind of everybody has the same problems. They've just all been trying to solve them differently, and so have ran into various barriers in trying to find solutions for those problems. But for the most part, a lot of the problems are the same. And so that made me feel better about my own family.
Yeah, there you go. So Brandi, I've got, as you're talking, I've got 4 scenarios, and I'm not kidding you. As you're talking, like the four people who are in family-owned businesses popped into my mind. They each have 4 different scenarios. If I can maybe ask you some questions about each, and you can give us a little bit, and I won't throw them all at you at once. So the first one that I've seen is maybe the next generation has actually purchased the business. And the prior generation who sold it to the next generation still wants to be involved, but the new owners, the newer generation is like, we're ready to make some changes, but it's really hard for us to do it with, you know, the prior generation still there. Right. Tell us a little bit about that situation, how maybe a few ideas or examples that you've had. Hey, Central Illinois professionals, do you know where people go to learn more about you? They typically either go to your About Us section of your website or your LinkedIn profile. And guess what the first impression is that they see? That's right, it is your professional headshot. Your headshot is part of your brand. Your brand should proudly show the world how passionate you are about delivering quality products and services to your customers. At Studio 21, you won't get the boring old headshots that everyone else has. When you get photos with Melissa Hardin at Studio 21, your headshots will show off your strength, confidence, and approachability. To book a professional headshot appointment for you and your team, call Melissa at 217-962-0048 or visit www.melissamharden.com. That's MELISSAMHARDEN.com. And let Melissa at Studio 21 help you stand out from the crowd. What's up, Central Illinois business owners? We know that insurance and employee benefits are one of the most expensive, confusing, and frustrating hurdles that you face in your business today. Garrett and I work with Central Illinois businesses to create insurance and risk management programs and employee benefit solutions that reduce risk, enhance your business, and maximize your profitability. Head to CIBLinsurance.com to learn more about insurance solutions that are specifically designed for your Central Illinois businesses, and to watch our educational videos about work comp, employee health insurance, commercial insurance, and other insurance products to help your business go to the next level. Go to CIBLinsurance.com. We'll see you there.
Totally. Well, not an uncommon issue for sure. This happens quite a bit. Either once the next generation has taken over or prior to that generation taking over, you know, we run into a lot of friction between one generation to the next. And so, you know, first I would say what we try to do is get very, very clear on roles, responsibilities, expectations, and make sure that everyone has been given the opportunity to voice all of those things. And we clearly lay it out in black and white. We go through a lot of different conversations around being a business first family, being a family first business. You know, what do all of those things mean? So, you know, your business first family is where you're gonna put the interest of the business first, no matter what, no matter who's involved. The business itself comes first. Family first, you know, that's more for like a lifestyle business where your priority is going to come around maintaining your family relationship. So we just do some exercise like that to get really clear on expectations. Then we get, and sometimes, a lot of times, when we first start this, the participants, the family members are like, this is so silly. Like, why are we doing this? We know I'm in charge. I do the deciding, But especially in the scenario where you're talking about, where the next generation has taken over, but the previous generation still wants to, kind of be consulted or involved, it is very important to go through all the different scenarios that are going to come up. Okay, you want to change your marketing strategy. You want to eliminate one sales, one product and introduce a new product. You want to, all of the things that you can think about. We go through all of those different scenarios to say, okay, who's going to be deciding this? And we try to get as many specific hypotheticals in there as possible so that both, because we oftentimes we think like, oh, the previous generation is the one that's always going to get irritated, right? Like they're changing what I did. But we also do find that next generation, they think that they want to be the one that makes all the decisions and does all the things, right? But then when it comes down to it and they have to make decisions and do all the things, it's like, oh wait, no, this is hard. I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know. I don't feel confident doing this. Now I'm a little scared, so we go through it both ways in both directions and talk about, okay, are you going to seek out guidance? And if so, when, right? So we try to establish some communication patterns, some regular meetings. A lot of times instituting a board of governance can be beneficial, even if it's just, from a more of a fiduciary standpoint and not an advisory standpoint, but to just know that you have these established sounding board points of contact and communication can be very helpful to then just saying like, okay, change is done. This is what we're going to do now.
Yeah.
That very much helps. And then a lot of times having a facilitator for that conversation is very beneficial and often very much overlooked. And I mean, I'll be the first to say it, like my father-in-law was the one that wanted to engage with Ferguson first. And me and my husband were like, why do we need to pay somebody? We can figure this out. Like, this is silly. Like, this is taking time. This is taking money. And both of which we're short in supply on. But man, and I think, I was probably the biggest resistor. Probably for at least 6 months or so until I finally started to realize the value in having someone completely outside of your own headspace in your own family, right? Somebody so those would be the biggest. Align your expectations, get clear on your communication. If you can and you want to get some third party perspective. And it doesn't have to be a business advisor. A lot of times people overlook, like, your CPA runs into a lot of things like this. Your banker, your attorney, anybody like that who has a broad experience of helping other businesses solve some of these same challenges is
right. Oh yeah.
Very beneficial.
Awesome. Yeah. So the number 2 situation that I have written down is the current generation is ready to move on. They're ready to hang it up. The retirement is on the horizon and they're ready to roll.
Yeah.
But the next, they don't trust the next generation to responsibly take it over. Yeah. So there's some friction building because the next generation thinks they want to do it, but they don't feel like they have the know-how or go-getter mentality to make it happen. Tell us a little bit about that situation.
Again, very common. It happens. A lot of times the answer to that is not what people want to hear, but you just got to have those hard conversations. I mean, you basically have 2 decisions. Like you have 2 choices, right? You don't have the hard conversation and you either don't retire or you retire and hope that they figure it out. Or you have the tough conversation. You maybe develop some sort of transition plan, right? Where maybe you hire in somebody that's not a family member for a period of time until that generation coming up gets more comfortable in leading. That's an option too, but oftentimes people don't want to hear it, but you have to address that.
Yeah.
If you don't feel like they're ready to take it over, you have to say, I don't think you're ready to take it over. And that is very hard for families. It's very hard to have that conversation. But it kind of has to be done.
Yeah.
Or you run the risk of your business not being able to successfully operate.
Yep. That's true.
So I'm curious, as you're going through this process with businesses, obviously there's going to be a lot of tough questions that maybe I don't want to ask Derek, my family member, about it. So is that where, you come into play and you're kind of like talking to Derek on one side and you're hearing his story, you're hearing Garrett's story over here on the other side, and then you can help ask the questions to at least initiate the conversation that nobody was waiting to ask, because I mean, let's face it, when it comes to family, it's hard enough to go to Christmas sometimes together with everybody, right? Let alone start to answer questions about your business.
Yes, totally. And so most of our engagements start off with an assessment. And so we spend about 3 months just assessing everything, depending on the structure of the business and the family, how many family members are involved. But we assess the business from strictly a business standpoint, right? What are your financials? What's going on there? What's going on with your business? Then we also have some personal assessments that we do around behavioral. So just some behavioral assessments just around what type of person they are. And then very, very personal meaning, what are your goals just in general in life? How do you see, we have them kind of rank and weigh the social aspects of their life, spirituality, family, how do they feel like their time is spread through those things now? How would they like it to look? What's ideal for them? And so then we assess it from all of these angles, and really kind of some of it's intuitive on our part, where we're trying to figure out, okay, it really doesn't seem like they're ready or willing or wanting to stay in the business or continue and take over, So we kind of assess where we kind of feel like everybody's currently at and where they want to be and what does that look like for the future, right? And then we will give our perspective and ask, like, how on point does that seem, or how far, is that far away from what you're feeling? And then we really go from there. But that's the sticky part. I mean, the beginning is the toughest part, because it's everyone's in different places in different spaces. And I don't think we've ever had any one client where everyone was like, yes, we want to do this. We want to engage in this project. We want somebody to come in and tell us where we suck and where we're great. And so there's always like usually one family member that's really champion for it. And they're going to be leaps and bounds ahead of the process than the other family members who are going to resist it for a while. And you have to come around, but that's it's exciting in a lot of ways, but also for me, the most nerve-wracking part of an engagement, because it's kind of like you, as someone especially that's been through it, you can say all day long, like, I promise you're going to feel better once you do this. But that person just has to go through it themselves, and it's painful.
Oh, I'm sure. I hate to say it. I watch a lot of Seinfeld, and I don't know if you're a Seinfeld fan or not, but it makes me think of Festivus, the airing of the grievances, right? Like, you have to sit down at a table and you've got to tell them what's going on and just be honest, right?
I talk about that episode all the time, actually. It is an airing of the grievances. It is, and a lot of times, it's people saying stuff that they have never said before. And it can be, very eye-opening.
I'm sure.
Well, one situation, you kind of brought it up in your intro when you're talking about your situation and how you, how Ferguson was working with your family-owned business. But you mentioned kind of mixing business with pleasure. It was bleeding into your daily life away from the job site. And I will say one thing I've always admired about, so I married into a family who has a very successful multiple generation. They're about to get into their third generation of, family owned business. And when I say multiple people, I mean, you have to probably have more than two hands to count all the people who currently work in that business or have worked in that
that's
business.
awesome.
But when we get together for holidays, it is all like there's no issues that are brought to the table. It's all, they get together, they have a great time, they, are with family, and they leave it all at the business if there's issues. I've always admired them for doing that, because I know most families that probably wouldn't be like that. There'd probably be this and that. And so that's a situation when it does start to affect family. Tell me a little bit about, how you handle that and how you help family-owned businesses reduce those issues.
Yeah. So again, a lot of tough conversations, a lot of clearly aligning expectations and having conversations around what it means. And we have a lot of conversations around intentionality, right? A lot of times when we get frustrated at the crossover or the bleed into personal, it's oftentimes because we misconstrue the intention behind why that happens. I used to always joke, both sides, so my husband's family and my family, they're all very entrepreneurial. So, really have a lot of experience with people owning their own businesses. And I used to always joke that, like, on my husband's grandfather, we would go over there for holidays, that we were like, one slide deck away from like a presentation before we carved the turkey, because it was always like just this rundown of like, how's your quarter shaping up? And, what's your biggest challenges? And so it was just, they just love business so much that the intention wasn't to like grill anyone, that it was really just like that's just what they live and breathe, right? And so if that's not for you, if that's not how you operate, it's first kind of, we can't change anyone, but we can better understand intention. And so just understanding why people are the way they are and why they do what they do. And that's really why we do some behavioral assessments, so that we can better understand that and better understand the root of why our family members do things that drive us crazy. And that helps us with some empathy around them and for that. And then if it's really just bugging you, so like to the point to where it's challenging, or you feel like that the intent is more malicious than caring, then you have to speak up and you have to say like, hey, I got no problem discussing this with you at work, but I have got to, for my own mental sake, I just can't talk about this like right now while we're at this 6-year-old's birthday party. Like this is not the time or the place, but I'm happy to discuss it with you next week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I would have to think that's got to be a common thing too, to where, some people are just obsessed with business or just obsessed with working. And another family member, they're devout to the business. They want to work hard for it, but maybe they don't need to be on it 120% of the time. They want their shut off time, their personal time. And then you get, resentment from one side or the other. Well, why is Derek not doing this as much as I'm doing it? So I would have to think that's a very common problem.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And so I can't encourage it enough. But I've said communication like 1,400 times here already. It's critical and it's not easy.
Sure.
And it probably took my family 10 years, like not an exaggeration, but like to realize like that we sucked at it and we needed to do it differently. And then it just took time for us to figure out and learn how to do it differently, how we're going to be more receptive to each other, what that's going to look like, what things we needed to let go of. Because too, when we're talking about this from a family perspective, we've all developed patterns of communicating and being with each other before the business. Sure. Right. So like if you're, a son or a daughter, you had a whole life of relationship and communication style prior to business. And sometimes it's very hard for the parent or the child to depart from those habits, right? And so that's very, very hard. Very hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Brandi, believe it or not, we are coming up on the 30-minute mark. Before we jump off of here, though, I know it. Well, I've got your website pulled up. So it's Ferguson-Alliance.com. And I see there's a lot of information on here. There's a lot of resources that are available to people. Looks like free resources potentially. So if there's anything, you want to leave our listeners with that have kind of cued into our conversation here, maybe want to learn more, tell us a little bit about how they can find you and learn more.
Yes. So the website is a great space to learn more. We've got a ton. We publish articles every week on succession planning, team development, financial, anything regarding running and operating your business. So it's great. There's articles, podcasts, videos, all kinds of stuff on there to check out. LinkedIn, also, if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, that's a great place to do that as well. I post a lot of content to help you there, and all of it's free. And we don't pressure anybody to work with us. It is all a personal decision that you have to come to on your own. If you're not fully ready to work with us, it's not going to work. And so whenever you're ready, or if you have questions or thoughts or anything, just feel free to reach out. Always happy to help.
Very cool. And where can they specifically reach you at, Brandi? Any social media pages, email address that goes straight to you?
Yeah. Email is the best, and that's Brandi, Brandi, at Ferguson-Alliance.com.
Perfect. Well, for all you loyal listeners out there, make sure you're subscribing to the CIBL podcast on your favorite podcast platform. While you're there, please leave us a review. It'd be greatly appreciated. You can also find us on social media, mainly LinkedIn and Facebook. You can connect with Garrett and I there personally as well. Until next time, Brandi, you've officially been civilized. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brandi.
Yep. Great job. Great information.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Central Illinois Business Leaders Podcast. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/CIBL Podcast. You can also follow us on LinkedIn. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. It's the civilized thing to do.